What's up, guys? It's Alex the Magician here, back for another Heroes 3 strategy guide. And in this one, I would like to discuss scouting. So, scouting is really one of the most important elements of the game, and it's really the foundation of everything else. It may seem self explanatory, but I think it should definitely be said that scouting is your main priority in the early game, and the more information you have about the map, the better informed decisions you will be able to make. Imagine having something like an earth tome in a part of your biome that you never scouted, or something else that could have potentially won you the game. So you definitely need to focus on scouting as much as possible in the early game. It's the highest priority for the first couple of turns. And then also when you enter new zones, those need to be scouted as much as possible, like the desert. And if you ever go to other biomes, etc., you also want to scout those as much as possible to, once again, have the most information that's available to you so that you can make better informed decisions, and you can scout better artifacts, more like army objects, boxes, whatever you are looking for that you may have not seen if you did not scout very well. So how do we do that? So this is really the reason, or a big part of the reason, why you're trying to buy 8 heroes on turn 1, because you want to scout as much as possible, right? And obviously on turn 1 and 2, you're also trying to determine whether or not you want to keep the map or restart the map. And the more information you have about the map, the better informed decision you will be able to make regarding that, because you may not necessarily find everything that you want right next to your town, right? It may be a little bit farther away. Imagine like the map being really good, but there's nothing around your town, and you restart it, and then maybe you end up checking the map later or something like that, and you see that you actually had tons of objects, just not right next to your town. So the more you can do that, the better. Now, obviously, for buying as many heroes as possible, you're going to need gold, right? However, you don't necessarily want to pick up gold that's too far off-road, especially if you have gold, right? If you're playing for a town with a big gold advantage, you're usually going to want to pick up gold that's right next to the road, but you really need to focus more on scouting than anything else. Now, if you're a town like Necro with a big gold disadvantage, you're starting with a big gold disadvantage, then of course, yeah, you want to pick up as much gold as possible, but once again, you're trying to get as many heroes out as possible, right? So that you can scout as much as possible once again. But also with Necro and, a town like Conflux, also a town like Dungeon, it is going to be a higher priority to pick up gold, just because you will need the gold to get out as many heroes as possible. And you're also going to want to farm money objects with them, like crypts, maybe churchyards, ruins with Conflux, and ruins also give you additional scouting information. And the other thing that I want to mention, so few things that actually help you with scouting. One would be heroes that already have scouting. 2 would be taverns or prisons next to the road. 3 would be things like the lookout tower, or also ruins for Conflux, and also the lookout tower for tower, the actual building. So the more you can utilize those things, the better off you'll be. So for example, I have Fiona here, and of course you wouldn't normally start with Fiona for Inferno, but she is really, really nice to get in the tavern. I really love getting Fiona in the tavern because she starts with advanced scouting, and actually that means that you can really quickly level that to expert scouting. If you get a learning stone right next to the road, or even like a treasure chest, I would highly consider picking up the treasure chest for experience with her, because next level up you're guaranteed to get expert scouting, since that's the only skill, right? So in a case like this, for example, Of course, it's going to depend on what town you're starting with. If you're really poor, then maybe you can't afford to pick it up for experience, but I would still try to level that scouting to expert as quickly as possible. So in a map like this, see how much more scouting information we already have just starting, and I would probably immediately go for one of these learning stones. It's slightly off-road, but I think it will make up for it having expert scouting, right? So we already see a lot of information, right? Other scouting heroes, they do help, like Pick a Dream, Beatrice, Shiva, but they are not as easy to get expert scouting on because they have 2 skills, so they may not necessarily level scouting. So I wouldn't necessarily waste treasure chests on leveling their scouting, but learning stones I would also get with them. So, I'm just kind of gonna demonstrate the scouting on turn 1 here. So obviously you want to follow the road as much as possible. And as I said, regarding resources, you don't want to pick up resources unless they're blocking your way on the road. Gold, depending on your situation, you may want to pick up these piles, but usually if you have gold, you only want to pick up the piles that are right next to the road or on the road itself. And here we do have another scouting hero. So this scouting hero I probably would not send for the learning stones. I'd probably just utilize to continue to scout a little bit more. And you see we've already scouted the break, right? So really good if you can scout the break on turn 1. It's not going to happen all the time, of course, because sometimes your break is going to be really far away, but that is good information to have. Like seeing if the break is easy or difficult, it definitely can give you the, part of the reason to either keep the map or restart the map. And also, if you have blocks like this along the road, you want to try to clear them as much as possible within reason, of course. You don't necessarily want to go too far out of your way. Like if we already sent our army over here with our main hero to do something, I may not go back and try to clear this block. But if I didn't do anything, then yeah, I definitely want to kind of try to clear that block, and then you can grab the army back with another hero, and then this hero just continues to scout in this direction, right? So here you see we've already gotten a decent chunk of scouting information. We can send Fiona probably in this direction, although scouting heroes are good to utilize along the road, but in this case we already scouted a decent amount over here, so I think I'll opt to send her here. And we do actually see one more hive and one more picket, so that's already a decent amount of information that we were able to gather about the map, right? I'm just going to use the money cheat here real quick since we're not really talking about gold gathering or resource management. But we're just trying to scout as much as possible here. And this is always going to be a priority no matter what town you're playing on turn 1. You're just trying to send heroes in all directions possible and try to scout as much as possible as well. And that's why you want to try to get out 8 heroes. And okay, so here we saw one more picket. So, already we can kind of make a determination whether or not we want to keep this map. The break is close. It's pretty good. We do see 2 pickets. We do see 2 hives. The guards are not amazing, but, overall, with all the information that we currently have, this map looks, somewhat okay. It's possible, but although I may think twice about that since the guards for the hive and the picket here are not very good. This picket is not very good either, so that may kind of sway me towards not keeping this map. Now, the other thing that I want to demonstrate real quick is having a scouting hero near the desert, right? Or anytime that I break, well, of course, if I can help it, if I have a hero with scouting, I love having that hero next to the break as my main is about to break, because you can just get so much more scouting information about the desert. So over here, for example, see we have Fiona with expert scouting, right? And already And this guy does have basic scouting, but look at how much more information we have already with her just moving next to the break, right? And then imagine, you know, we do the break here. Let's imagine we don't level scouting just so we don't have it on our main, quote unquote. And let's say, you know, we continue to move with Fiona in this direction and see how much scouting information that gives us. You know, imagine like over here seeing like an Earth Tome or something that you would have not normally seen if you didn't have the scouting hero. So I love having that. So scouting is not necessarily a skill that you want to have on your main hero. It's not terrible, you know, you're not like completely unhappy if you get a choice of like Eagle Eye versus Scouting. You can pick it, and you know, having Calth, for example, as Inferno, you will have Scouting normally, so it's actually decent. But if you can help it, you want to have other heroes who can scout for you rather than your main hero with Scouting. And also a couple more things to keep in mind are Scouting artifacts like the Speculum and the Spyglass. Those help as well. And we also have scouting specialists like Miriam and Beatrice who actually increase their scouting radius for every 5 levels. I think it's by 1 for every 5 levels. So if you can level them up, maybe take some Pandora boxes in the center, that can help you scout even more. And just a couple of more things that I wanted to show you guys. So stuff that I've kind of already discussed, like the ruins for conflicts, for example, right? So imagine, imagine you're starting this conflicts right here, right? And you see these ruins. Well, it's a good idea to go for them, first of all, because you'll need gold as conflicts usually. And second of all, you will get more scouting information. So see, if we did these 2 ruins, look at how much scouting information we've already gathered. So always really good to have that as well. And here I just want to demonstrate the lookout tower. So you will see that whenever you do have a lookout tower next to your town, you know, it's really, really good to be able to actually visit that on turn 1 because it's just going to give you way more scouting information, and with that you'll be able to make the decision. So if you can find one, if you can reach one, then, you know, try to do that. Try to reach it on turn 1, because with the revelation, look at how much scouting information that gave us. Now we can make a much more informed decision whether or not we want to keep the map. So on turn 1, I would say it would be a high priority if you were able to see it. Of course, unless it has some kind of unreasonable guard, because sometimes they may be guarded, you know, with a combination like with an artifact or a scroll or something like that. So sometimes it may be unreasonable, but if they're open like that, try, like, do your best to actually go to the lookout tower on turn 1 and even later as well, because it's always going to be giving you a lot of scouting information, unless of course it's like in the corner, which does happen sometimes, but in many cases it does help you a lot. Now, as far as the lookout tower goes, so actually, as tower is something that I prefer to do sometimes. So for me personally, see, we see the Redwood Observatory here, but it's not going to be doable, right? So this is unreasonable. So that's what I was talking about. That's, in this case, I would not go for that. Even with Solmir's Chain Lightning, that's unreasonable, right? But let's say we did a little bit of scouting as tower like so, and we don't really see anything that we can do on turn 1 in terms of fights, right? So Usually what I do when I play tower is I try to scout, and we do see the break here, but see, we don't really see any fights that we need to do. I mean, we could potentially go for the crypt, but assuming that we have gold, if we didn't have gold, maybe we would go for that. But assuming that we scouted this, right, it doesn't look that great. We don't really see any lamps. We don't really see anything that would, make us keep the map. So in this case, I would opt to go for a lookout tower on day 1, not the gremlin upgrade, because we don't really need the gremlin upgrade anyway. So I would go for the lookout tower, which gives me a lot more information around my town and would allow me to make a more informed decision whether or not I actually want to keep the map or not. In a lot of cases, I do this when I'm already kind of like, well, map doesn't look great, doesn't look like I want to keep it. Well, let's see if we can get the lookout tower to see whether or not we can see something good in, over here that would sway us towards actually keeping the map. And here we do see the cuirass, we do see a lamp over here that we could potentially do with Solomir's Chain Lightning. So, those are good things. Not sure if I probably would still not keep this map, but I have certainly had games where the map looked like I didn't want to keep it, and then after I got the lookout tower, I saw that, I got like a few lamps in the snow over here, and I decided to keep the map. So this is something that I like to do sometimes as tower. Not everybody agrees with that, I think, but I personally do prefer this kind of play, like, try to scout first, see if you need the gremlin upgrade for any fights. If you don't, and especially if the map looks kind of mediocre, go for the lookout tower to see if you can actually find something or see something that would make the map worth keeping. All right, and one more thing that I wanted to demonstrate here is utilizing prisons and taverns, right? So let's say we're scouting like this, right? And we see a prison over here, right? Well, here we actually see that we cannot reach it with this hero, but if we clear this block, right, we can get one more hero. And this hero can actually reach the prison. And then we can utilize this hero to continue scouting. So always really nice to have that. And then let's say, you have a tavern, you can have a tavern next to the road somewhere. It is also good on your first scouting turn to utilize that tavern to buy additional heroes here to get even more scouting information. So let's say we did that, and then this hero can continue to scout in this direction. So look at how far down the road we were able to scout because of the prison and the tavern. So much more scouting information than we would have gotten with just one hero that would have continued to run over here. So definitely useful to utilize those when you can, of course, if you have the gold and if you're able to do this, if you're able to like open the prisons and whatnot. And one last element that I wanted to kind of share with you guys is that also has to do with scouting, but not so much scouting the fog, but more actually scouting the sizes of objects that you would go for. So here's an example. We see a hive, and this hive is a size 3 or 4, right? Well, as dungeon, you can take a size 3 hive on turn 1 with your day 1 army, provided you do not lose too much to the actual guard of the hive. But you would not be able to take a size 4. So if this is like not turn 1, if you don't have any restarts left, like if you do have restarts, you may want to go into the hive anyway and see, like if you don't have the gold for another hero, then, go into it. Then either you take a size 3 hive or you die in a size 4 and you take a restart. But in this map, for example, it would be kind of a shame to restart because we see a couple of hives over here. We see a cons here, XP shop. So it would be much more beneficial to actually check this hive to see whether or not it's a size 3 or 4 before actually going into it with our main army, right? So And especially if you're doing this on like turn 3, you know, when you don't have any restarts left anymore, then of course you want to check, you know, and not go into it blindly, so that you know whether or not you actually need to go into it. So let's say we check it and we see it's a size 3. So boom, now we can actually go ahead and get into this and see even Auto Combat is able to do this, right? So no problem there. Now, the other thing that I kind of wanted to demonstrate here as well would be taking conses. So doing kind of the same thing with conses. I'm just gonna quickly, let's see. Just really quickly want to demonstrate this. Let's say we took all of these hives, right? And of course, this would be less sloppy. I'm just using Auto Combat here. But let's say we took all of these hives and we have 15 Wyvern. Well, we could have had 16, right? So then we go for the cons, and it's also a size 2, 3, or 4. So we cannot tell what size it is, right? With 15 Wyvern, we would be able to take a size 2. Size 3 might be doable, but with heavy losses, size 4 is definitely death. Right, so if we have 15 Wyvern and some 1-stacks, well, we might as well go into the cons with a side hero as well to check the size. And we see that this is a size 3, so for this one, I would probably not be going until I got some additional army somewhere, or maybe I got Shakti to be stronger, like take the shield or something like that. So all of those elements, you know, are useful, and you should definitely keep all of those things in mind when you're playing, when you're scouting, when you're prioritizing, etc. And, you know, last thing that I'll mention is before, you know, you can learn to chain properly, you need to be able to prioritize objects. Then before you can prioritize objects, you need to be able to identify objects of interest. And before you can do that, you need to scout. So scouting, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, is really the basis of everything. So I hope that you guys found this video useful. I am going to end it there. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, check out my Twitch stream for more English Speaking Heroes 3 content. Link in the description below. And I will see you guys soon. Peace.